Yay, so this is the second time that I'm welcoming you as part of Future Trends 2021 event on people experience and challenge-based learning. Thank you so much for joining, and special welcome to our speakers today. We have an honor to welcome Dan Riley, David Jacobson, and Luis Rodriguez joining us to talk about what takes us beyond people experience and people engagement and how to view the world in the future where digital transformation is happening and we can empower more people to learn through solving complex problems and upskilling them for the future. So special welcome. Hello. Hello, Dan, David, Luis.
Good morning, good afternoon, Chris.
So nice to be with you and all of your guests. Thank you for having us.
And good morning and good afternoon for everyone. I was so excited to see that it's mostly senior experts and executives joining from all around the globe. So it's 71 locations from which people will either join us live or watch back our show and conversation. And in the meanwhile, to get to know all of you who are participating, please put a welcome message in the chat. We would like to get to know you, where you are joining from. And if you would like to have the chance to get more people to collaborate with, feel free to share your LinkedIn profile URL as well, so that everyone can connect with you after. And let's check out who do we have today. Opening up the chat. Hello, Johannesburg. Hello, hello, and welcome. We are pretty curious to get to know you, where you are from, and who you are. Hi, Tsepo. Some people need a little bit more time. Just telling you that I know many people are joining from USA and Austria as well. Hello and welcome. In Malaysia, you see we have a global attendee list coming in. Hi, Suzanne, good to see you. Hi, Khalid from Saudi Arabia. So in the meanwhile, we are saying hi to everyone joining us, just a bit of house rules. So feel free to use the chat for sharing anything about maybe yourself or a special comment, but throughout the conversations, we will use the Q&A. So if you click on the Q&A, feel free to address a specific question to any of our speakers, and we will have an extra 10 minutes to discuss with Dan, David, and Luis how they see the answer to your question. So we will spend some time, and feel free to think about what would you like to ask. This is a special opportunity. And in the meanwhile, welcoming other people from Budapest, Israel, Austria, Los Angeles, and from other parts of the globe. And I think without further ado, let's invite everyone to listen to how we managed to turn people engagement into a more empowering environment. And I would like to ask to have Dan Riley to the screen. Welcome everyone. And Dan, it's very inspiring to see that you're a serial entrepreneur and transforming not just how we view HR and people experience, but you have a knowledge about business and transforming technology and how to combine all of these worlds in order to inspire change. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Chris. And I love seeing this global audience. I'm seeing all of these. It's awesome. Love it. So welcome everybody for joining.
Yeah, welcome for joining us. And I would like to immediately jump into my first question about how do you see the world changing? We are always talking about the post-pandemic world, but do you think that through digital transformation will people management, people analytics, and generally the way we engage with people change?
Yeah. So I'll give just maybe 30 seconds on my history. I mean, I've spent probably 20, 25 years now deep in working through organizational change, culture change, employee engagement. To age myself, I was around when we called it employee satisfaction. Right? This is before even the construct of engagement started, and working through long surveys and snapshots on an annual basis, and old school performance management systems. And so I've sort of lived through it all, and we're at a place now. I'll just simply say this: absolutely, the world has changed, right? The context for work has changed, and there is from my perspective, a greater obligation for companies to provide something bigger and greater to their people, and to act responsibly and to give back. So this pandemic, one thing we all have in common, right, is we all have lived through this pandemic, and it's brought out humanity at its best. And so there has been a return to being human at work, and the humanization of work, and taking care of each other in ways where we always knew a people first approach was important, but we had to live that way in the workplace more than ever, right? I joke sometimes, but I say it in all serious nature, that the question of how are you doing today became really important. It wasn't just a quick small talk moment to pass some time, right? The person asking the question actually cared about the response, and the person answering the question actually gave an honest, transparent, caring response. So we started to build relationships again. We started to humanize the workplace again. And now we're to this point where things are starting to get back to normal. Certainly some parts of the world, we have a ways to go. But for the most part, we are getting closer to a post-pandemic world. And the big opportunity we have is how can we continue to keep the pressure on being incredible to each other, right? Humanizing the workplace, taking care of each other, where leaders are more worried about their team and how are they doing, and not are we hitting timelines, while we also get back to rebuilding our businesses. And there is a fiscal responsibility we have, right? We have to grow again. We have to do business again. We have to start selling again, all of these things. So there's going to be a fine balance between these things. And that's the opportunity that we have. But period, change is necessary. And that is, that's the starting point. You have to look at 2021 and beyond through a fresh lens, new eyes, and make radical changes, which is the reason, coincidentally, why I founded the company Radical.
Yes, and I love how you have put these examples about caring each other and listening to what we have to say about our well-being and sometimes our worries as well, because in a sudden we experienced the same thing globally, and we were really listening about how it looks like and how others feel and think about the same experience. And if we can support them in any ways, both within the company, but I felt the same with clients and our contact people. So I'm really curious if you have seen any of the programs. You're the founder of Radical, and that's how Radical change, you facilitate different types of programs. And can you share a couple of the examples so that we can imagine if this is possible to be triggered in a company, this caring mindset or the mindset of taking people to be the first?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest question we get is, well, all of this sounds great, humanizing the workplace and taking care of each other, which we had to do, but we needed to do. But how do we keep that up, and who's responsible for it? So that absolutely is the opportunity, and it becomes ultimately it's behavior change, right? It's the small little things that people decide to do consistently over and over again. That's how we maintain culture. That's how we build culture. That's how we grow culture. It's having uncomfortable conversations. There is an opportunity to begin to normalize topics we might not have talked about in the workplace. This starts to bring out the best in teams and the best in each other. And so as far as programs go, I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, Chris, but I think there is a critical moment right now to do two things. And that's one is to reset and really reconnect to your purpose statement. And, what do you stand for? Why do you exist? What's your why? Why do you wake up every morning? Make sure everybody in the organization is connected to that. And that's what they rally around. That's number one. Number two, reconnect and recommit and potentially review and tweak your core set of values, right? And these values are so important to how we operate, how we show up every day. And again, what we rally around. And I guess I will just add a third one. We have to be open-minded with the mindset that all are welcome, right, in this organization, but this is our purpose. So we all need to believe in this and be focused on this and be inspired by this. And these are our values, and this is how we're going to operate. So to me right now, programs and organizations that we're working with, we're digging deep there. We're going really deep into not just do the values sound nice on paper, and are they written well, and are they meeting the moment, but are we living them every day? Do our people understand what it really means, right? If we're using a value like empathy, or we're using a value like trust, let's build stories around it, examples around it, so we really understand, what does trust mean in my organization? Does it means a lot of things. It can mean a lot of things. So it's really understanding, what does it mean and how do we live it? And then finally, holding each other accountable. That is key. We have to hold each other accountable. And I mean that in a real positive way, but we have to help each other through when we're struggling to live up to a value. We need to celebrate when we achieve successes and achieve, small as they may be or big as they may be, celebrate with each other, help promote each other. So this is, as far as programs that work, it's these very human things and collaboration, right? How we connect and how we, even Chris, your organization, what you do at Be-novative, just giving people a platform to connect and ideate and bring ideas to the table in a way where it's a very inclusive environment where every idea can be considered and discussed. So I think organizations have a lot of work to do, but in some ways these things are relatively simple, but it's hard sometimes to be simple because we always want to overcomplicate sometimes, right? We want to have a 20-point plan. We want to have a big PowerPoint deck that explains it, but we have to get back to basics to some degree. But we need really great tech, and we need really great leaders And we need organizations who really believe in their purpose and are refocused and committed to their values.
Yeah, I love it. And it perfectly aligns with our previous shared success story with how is it possible to empower everyone in an organization to connect to the purpose and to think about how to move it further, like how my daily work can contribute to the purpose of the entire company. And what I loved about working particularly on that project is we saw it coming to life, that people got motivated, that now they see an extra benefit of working for the same organization. They see it from a different point of view, that they can connect with others in the company that they might not have known before, just because they are motivated by the same purpose pillars. And for a couple of weeks, that was like 6 to 10 weeks in different types of programs for different organizations, they could come up with a project and actually experiment and validate the impact of these projects, talking with real people. So I was wondering if you can share a couple of your best practices. How is it possible to make people feel connected to the company's purpose? Do we do it always on a company level? Sometimes do we do it on a department level? And what do you think is the role of maybe people experience in making this happen?
Yeah. So I think, we kind of think about, there's really three things that I think, are so critical in 2021. And that is what we just talked about. It's purpose, it's people, and it's whole person experience. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment, which to me is, it's the next level of people experience and employee experience. So to give it just a moment of background, and then I'll specifically answer your question, we've sort of, over the years, we've moved from, as I mentioned earlier, employee satisfaction to employee engagement, right? It's a psychological commitment and investment to the company. Do I want to stay at the company? Do I have an opportunity to grow within the company? Do I say great things about the organization? Do I promote them? Am I an advocate for them? And that was enough to some degree to say, am I engaged or disengaged? And that was typically, in many cases, we were doing that on an annual basis. And that it served its purpose for a period of time. But again, I used the example, a relationship example. If you tell somebody or check in with your partner once a year and say, how are we doing? Do we still love each other? And then, and to kind of to make a decision, yes or no, or we have a few things to do, then make an action plan and then check in a year later, right? Ultimately, it's going to fail. So the fact that organizations were listening to their customers daily and listening to their people every year was just a little bit absurd. So we moved into this more data, more, faster, continuous dialogue, continuous listening mindset, which was great, right? We were starting to ask questions more of our people and starting to build a people experience strategy, but it was chaotic, right? Because we weren't really being intentional. It wasn't questions that were relevant to the moment and relevant to what someone was feeling and potentially needed. So then we started to move into an employee experience, right? It's the moments that matter. It's let's make sure we're measuring people during those critical moments during their day. When they need to be asked something, where they needed to be asked something, at the right time, the right place, all of that. And that served us well too, but now we're to a place where people, we're all human beings and there's something bigger going on, and there's that opportunity and that obligation, right? To be bigger than just the job, bigger than just the organization, but really play a role in society and making the world a better place. So a whole person experience is taking the best of everybody, understanding what makes them tick, what do they need? Do they need time to help with the community? Do they need time to be with their family? We know, women coming back into the workplace, and what was asked to women who are raising children during this pandemic to work all day, stay at home with their kids, or work all night and stay during the day, take care of kids, whatever it might be, right? We were asking so much of each other, and so that whole person experience is so critical, right? How do we really listen to what individuals need, respect what they need, and build a culture where everybody can flourish? And one program that we use, it's a very simple exercise that we go through, and I'll share it with everybody. It's real fast. It's ask yourself 4 things. We exist to, so why do you exist as a company? I'm going to read an example in a moment. We provide, we serve, and our value is, right? So again, we exist to something, we provide something, we serve something, our value is something. And I'm going to use one example that you should all know. It's Airbnb. It's kind of a famous example, and I think it really it helps build connection with people and inspire people when they can read through this and feel this and breathe this. So at Airbnb, it's we exist to create a world where home can be anywhere, right? We provide a platform that connects you to a local home, delivering a unique experience at any price point. We serve people for whom traveling means living like a local, right? Our value is belong anywhere. And those 4 statements that Airbnb came up with, right, inspired their customers, inspired their people, and helped to really build a culture and a purpose and a set of values, that motivated people daily. So I think that's just one exercise I wanted to share. And I do have one client example, which I'll bring up in a moment as well.
Yes, super, because it perfectly aligns with what I wanted to transition to, and it's the role of other departments, maybe the responsibility of senior leadership, of customer experience, business development, on taking their part in the same equation, how to make sure that we connect with people, we listen to each other, not just to customers, but also our employees. We are there for each other within the team. And what do you think their not just their role could be, but taken the time that some organizations have a route to really arrive there? What could be maybe the first steps to connect? So what can we empower these leaders to do first if we would like to arrive to a state where all of the employees would like to feel they can contribute to the purpose?
Yeah. So the couple things that I think are so important is authenticity is one word that, and just state of mind that comes to mind. And when we're working with organizations, it is you have to be, as a leader, your responsibility is to take care of the people around you, right? As a CEO or senior leadership, if you ask someone, a CEO, and you say, well, what's your responsibility? And if the answer is to be profitable, they shouldn't be CEO. Let me be really, really, really blunt here. The answer is to take care and inspire the people that work for the organization. Because if you do that, and you do that right, and you do that consistently, that will lead to profitability. Profitability is an outcome, right, of doing all little things right. Revenue growth is an outcome of taking care of your people, doing things right. Of course, you need a good product, and you need strategy, and sometimes there's some luck, and it's being the right place at the right time. We get all that, but without taking care of your people and being authentic leaders, that is the most important thing. So as far as, how do we make sure everyone's getting involved? There is a level, I think of it as a movement, right? And a movement happens on both sides. There needs to be something to inspire to, right? Something that you believe in, a North Star that you can connect to and say, yes, that's the direction I'm going. And that needs to be set by senior leadership. But then there needs to be confidence, right, amongst the rest of the organization to follow and to take risks and to take chance and to inspire each other and to help build a culture where we're all in this together. I mean, the reality is, right, businesses are run by humans, and long-term success isn't found in being profit-centered. It's found in being human-centered, period, right? And so let me say that again, right? Long-term success is found in being human-centered. And so this is so important for organizations to remember that. And I guess a few things I'll add to that is when we talk about humanity in business, that means the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, right? Humans are complex creatures, so it's not as easy as it sounds. But if we focus on people, we have to focus on people more than the algorithm of the business, right? So it's not the newest, shiniest platform or the shiny graph, but it's taking care and focusing on people. So that needs to be a commitment that leaders have, managers have. And building culture requires relationships. So you need to build a safe place where ideas can be brought up and debated and understood and respected. And that's where empathy comes in, of course, right? And to build these relationships, this requires communication and this requires presence. And when I say presence, that means just listening sometimes and just saying, I hear you, I understand, but I don't know the answer to that, or I don't know what we're going to do about this, but let's figure it out together. And that creates connection and collaboration, right? Now we're in this together and we lock arms and we go, and that creates a people first culture. So everyone's responsible, everyone needs to be involved. Senior leadership has to believe in it, they have to set the tone, and they have to create a safe space for their people to follow and believe in what they believe, and ultimately gives them the best to bring their best to work and bring their energy to work.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing. And if I understand well, this way it is also possible to balance out revenues and profitability and creating real inspired change.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. People want to be connected to an organization that's successful, right? So it isn't enough just to say, well, we have a great culture and we take care of each other, and that has to be the case. But again, if the organization is losing money and failing and won't be around in a year, well, that will build disengagement. We know that. But ultimately, the way if you're taking care of your people first and you're creating this incredible culture and this kind of no-fail mentality, right, that's likely not going to happen. But if you try to just focus on the revenue side first, even if you have some short-term gains, it's not a long play that's going to succeed. It just simply won't. So you have to take care of people first. Revenue will come, but you also have to make smart decisions. So there is a balance that needs to be made. And we're in this interesting moment right now, right, where organizations are needing to get back because business and certain industries, travel is one of them, hospitality is another one of them, certainly other industries where business is starting to flow again, and we're needing to get back to the basics with how we do business, how we may make money, but we can't forget about the importance of what we did and what we lived over the last 16 months with taking care of our people, and we're bringing people back that were furloughed in some cases. So there's confidence and there's trust that needs to be rebuilt with their people. So that's a whole nother conversation. But yes, there is an opportunity for balance. I'm extraordinarily optimistic about the future that we have, the future of work. It's going to require a new commitment, a new way of thinking about things, challenging each other. As I said before, having conversations that are uncomfortable, normalizing conversations that maybe we didn't have in the past. But if we do this together and build a connected workplace, it's amazing what we can accomplish.
I cannot agree more. Thank you so much. And it came to my mind that a moment ago you said you were about to share an example. So we are all here.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun one. Actually, it was just yesterday. I had we've been working with a client. So I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And for those, like, we have a very global audience, and most of you probably know Minneapolis. And many of you probably are aware of Minneapolis recently for a big change movement, obviously, around the murder of George Floyd in our city, which really has been it's been hard. About a mile from where I live is where that happened. So this city has been recovering, and there's been incredible change, and there's incredible community. It's a beautiful city for that. And we're working with an organization that it's a very communal place. It's a place of healing. That's kind of the business model. It's a almost a retreat, a spa. It's a water. It's a place where people can heal with water, and it's a very big organization that's launching, and it's the first of its kind, in fact, in the city of Minneapolis. And we've been working on the purpose statement and the values and the need, right, of what it means to Minneapolis to bring people together and to heal together. And we just did our we brought in about 10 people from the company, just random people, to walk through the purpose and the why and this core set of values, and to just see how they respond and see how it made them feel. And I think there was more tears on that call than I've ever been in. And it was I've been in a lot of focus groups, and it was the most beautiful thing to see. A business that's, they're doing everything right. They're getting tons of funding and investment and growing this business. But what it came down to, why do they exist? The importance and of how badly they're needed in a city that has been hurting. And people were just so motivated. And this was their team that will be growing this business. I have never seen a team, and I told them at the end, you will succeed. This company will flourish because of all of you. The raw emotion and just the excitement and the need and the confidence in what this organization is doing. It was a beautiful thing to see. And so I was really proud to be a part of that. And it was a lot of hard work to get to that moment, but just to see everyone let their guard down and just be and really celebrate that moment and that purpose and that vision. And it was a great example for me and a reminder of the work that we do. Because we could have talked about the operational side of the business. How are we going to open up, salons all over the city and do X, Y, and Z? But we talked about the people and the values and the why do we exist and why does Minneapolis need this and why is it important? And that is what inspired and motivated people. And it was humbling for me. And I love to be reminded of why that's so important and to see it firsthand. So I'll just leave you with that example.
Lovely story. In the meanwhile, I also see that we are getting some questions from the audience. And just because I think they are really amazing questions, I want to give the time so that we answer them. And if any one of you has more questions, feel free to ask. We have like 10 minutes to discuss the most interesting ones. So feel free to give thumbs up for the questions that you are particularly curious to get an answer for. And with that, let's start with Victoria's question. So for you, Dan, how can we creatively communicate and deliver the answers to those purpose questions, like who we are, who do we serve, etc., to employees so that they feel engaged and ownership over them, other than they are listed in the
orientation package? So I would answer that with one word or a hyphenated word, however you want to say it. Storytelling. Build your purpose, your why do we exist, who do we serve, build it into stories. Make it personal. Always make it personal. And so allow stories of your people, to share stories of your people and connect it to your values and your purpose and your why. So it isn't just a statement. And I used that example of trust. Let's say, trust is a core value. Talk about moments where that made a huge impact on a team or an individual or the clients you serve, and celebrate that. So make it real, make it personal, and allow it to be owned by everybody, right? Not just senior leadership or the marketing team who comes up with the statements.
That's great. And it also perfectly aligns with our next question, which is kind of the contrary of this. So how do you treat employees who feel not connected to the purpose and who don't trust in the vision and the strategy?
I think that's a great question. I think if there is no connection to the purpose and the strategy, the hope is maybe there's a connection to the people they work with, right? So I think everyone, this kind of brings up the question of culture fit or versus a value fit hiring, right? Like, do we want to hire people who think like us, act like us, believe everything we believe? Absolutely not. But do we want to hire people that can rally around our purpose and rally around our values? Yes, we do. We want people like that in our organization. So look, on one hand, there can be moments where it's just, they're like a relationship, there is just incompatibility, right? There is fits that aren't right. But for the most part, try to, with someone like that, again, I bring it back to storytelling. Maybe they can start to understand, relate to it more personally. Like, oh, I understand this purpose now. I see what you're doing and why we're doing this, because now I have some personal stake in it, and it affects me. So I think you need to try to just story more, make it more personal. And if that still doesn't work and the person just doesn't feel connected or doesn't believe in the values, then I think that's a harder conversation. I think we want people to be happy. We want employees to be connected to the organization, and we want the organization to be connected to employees. And if we can't get there, then we can't get there. But I think we need to try, and we need to be very, very inclusive, with an inclusive mindset as we're building culture.
What do you think, just reflecting back on this question, if somebody is like not fully disconnected to the purpose, just not entirely connected as much as we would like them to be, maybe involving them in talent programs to empower them to add something to the purpose that they truly feel connected to, and make leaders listen to this, and somehow show what is the impact, not just asking leadership to show the impact, but also provide a space for people to add something to this purpose as they see it's possible to create impact.
Chris, I think that's one thing we talk about a lot. Is, to use an example, if you make cars, you might not love the car that you make. Maybe you don't believe in that car, but your responsibility is you actually make the seats, right? And you make the most beautiful seats, and you're connected to that. Or you're connected to the way the seats feel, the way the seat heaters work, the way they recline, the way the lumbar on the back works, and that's your specialty. And you're passionate about that, which ultimately maybe isn't the larger purpose of we build cars to bring you from point A to point B, but I'm connected to it because I build seats that people sit in that are in cars that bring you from point A to point B, and that's enough, right? So allowing people to celebrate those things that they're responsible for, that connect to the purpose, maybe 1 degree, 2 degrees away. So I agree. I mean, there's ways to get people connected in their core world and where they belong.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at the next question. So it says, as someone in people experience role in the fintech industry, I totally agree. The responsibility for a safe and empathetic culture falls on several people: my department, senior leadership, the managers within the departments, and best practices on how to best work with those people, managers, to uphold this culture we are all trying to work to cultivate. So any best practices you have on how to work with senior management and people from all levels of the organization.
Yeah. So this is I think I use the word connectedness often, and sometimes, and this question makes me, and I don't know if this is exactly what the question is asking, but it's hard sometimes, especially kind of in middle management in organizations, to feel as connected, right? Because you might own a team, but you still might be a few connections away from senior leadership, and you're sort of floating in the middle. And so sometimes you feel like you need to tackle things on your own, and you create your own ways of building experience and people experience, and we can eventually ultimately have a very disjointed organization. So what I always recommend to organizations is build advocates up and down the organization. So let's say you're a level of 7 levels, 8 levels, a large organization. Build groups, connect people who wouldn't normally be connected, and bring them together, sharing best practices. It's amazing what that does, just to build these advocates, and make sure, again, you're including people who might be a little more disconnected purely by the job they have. And so that's the way you can start to practice culture consistency and employee experience consistency is sharing, bringing people together who wouldn't normally be connected.
Thank you so much for sharing. Let's look at maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So what is your take on the issues like Google staff marching out, or other employee groups expressing disconnect or disagreement in activist ways?
Well, whoever wrote this, you can feel free to reach out to me directly on this one too. So I have a lot of I'll try to be brief on this. So look, here's we're at a time, and Coke was another great example. I mean, Google and Coca-Cola had to make some decisions as well. CEOs are unfortunately, we're to a place where companies are feeling as though they need to choose a line, right? Choose a side when it comes to social cause. And I think that's, for the most part, I think it's really healthy. I think as long as you do it in a way that's connected to, your values, what you stand for, and it isn't just pandering to a worry that you might lose clients, right? It has to be, if organizations are making tough decisions based on activist causes, make sure you're making them for the right reasons. Make sure because it's not core to who you are and who you want to become, and what your core values are and what your purpose is, and not out of fear. So that is one of the most important things I tell CEOs. But take a stand, absolutely. Organizations do have that responsibility and have a lot of power in societal change. So I do applaud that. As far as the specific question on listening to employees, and what changes Google needed to make, and especially if there's an uprising and employees put memos together and 1,000 employees sign it, yeah, that's important. And then you need to be super transparent and honest with your employees. And if it's a change you're not willing to make, explain to your employees why, and then stand by that decision too. So it's a tough one. I have a lot of opinions on that, and I work with a lot of organizations that go through things like that. But again, just make sure it's not based on fear. Make sure it's based on true authentic belief system, and make sure you communicate and you're open and honest with your people when you do. And I think you can navigate through it.
Thank you so much for sharing. And maybe just a short answer for the last question that is coming from Tsepo. Incredible to live a mile from George Floyd fell. What corporate lessons can be learned from that moment? Anything? I guess
you have a short answer to that.
Yeah.
I think. How do I keep that one short? The need to love more in the workplace. I mean, if anything, that reminded us that there's still a lot of divide, and there is a lot of, there's still some hate, and there's some differences of opinions. So I would say, love and empathy, right? Understanding where people come from and their perspective, and why someone might believe something, loving each other unconditionally, and doing the work, right? And really listening, is, I think, corporate lessons. That's a big question with a lot of answers, but let's just keep it to love.
Thank you so much. I think it's the most perfect short answer that I could imagine, and I cannot agree more. Just a personal perspective. Many of you in the audience know about me that I'm a psychologist by training, and that's why I love working with design thinking, because it says that the journey starts with empathy, and it can be applied not only with clients, but with our own employees as well. So a design thinking journey on learning about how to feel some kind of love to every one of us we are working with is an amazing experience. So I think I would come to a similar conclusion, and thank you so much for this perspective.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris. Great conversation. Great questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I love the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And with that, let's move forward with how to imagine the future of learning and empowering people in a different scenario. So I would like to introduce you to David Jacobson, the Executive Director of Online Learning for SMU Cox School of Business, and Luis Rodriguez, who is a candidate for MBA and also a practitioner for design thinking that he learned from IBM. So thank you, David and Luis, and welcome to our stage.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to take a second to do what Dan did. And Dan, thank you. I loved listening to what you were sharing. And so I wanted to let people know I'm not an academic. I am the executive and academic director for online education, also for the professional MBA program and the executive MBA program. And my group runs all of the experiential learning projects and consulting training that we do at this school. But I don't come from academia. I'm an entrepreneur. I've lived most of my life overseas, raised my family in a number of countries, and worked closely with a variety of companies as a partner in ventures, but also as a strategist. And so when I listen to this discussion, it's a very exciting discussion. And so it is a wonderful opportunity. And it's also been great fun for me to work with Luis and have him be involved in the projects and opportunities that we're doing, and to learn from Luis. So.
Thank you, David. Absolutely. Actually, this is the aspect why I think working with you is so extraordinary, because although we have been empowering MBA students, but in the meanwhile, we were working pretty closely with corporate executives, startup founders, venture capitalists at the same time. So we are solving real problems on the go and coming up with new solutions. So the last experience that we did together was on immersive learning experience. So if you can share with us a little bit more about what types of programs you are running, and how do you see the topic, this is a big topic of empowering people in new ways.
Well, you know, the focus of what we do is to genuinely teach people how to look at complexity and uncertainty and even ugliness, and have the tools, frameworks, and mindset to lean into that as opposed to lean away. And in the most ugly scenarios, figure out how we find opportunities. And part of that is teaching ourselves how to engage with others at all levels of a hierarchy. And in order to do that, we use tools. And one of the tools that we have used is your platform. And people may not know that you and I have had so long relationship in this. But the thing that Priscilla doesn't know is that the year before I met her, I was leading a consulting project with student teams. This is back in 2015, where we were working on a new strategy for a $25 billion company with 23,000 employees in 60 different geographies. And the student group was in their headquarters in a large global Asian city. And we're started off talking to the C-level people. And as they were talking to them, they were getting so excited by the vision that they were hearing and the inclusiveness that they were hearing. And they didn't know that I was a business partner of this family and had also done a lot of work with this company. And so they were sharing, and then we came back to the room in the corporate headquarters that was our work room, and they were sharing everything. I said, okay, love what you're saying. What do you think you should do next? And they were saying, well, let's go down to the next level. And I was listening. I said, why don't you do this? Why don't you stress test what you just heard? Why don't you go down to the lowest level in the hierarchy and ask them their sense of vision and participation? And they did. And it blew their mind, because the world that was described to them on the top floor was a world that had no relevance at all to the people that they were interviewing at theoretically the bottom floor, although it wasn't literally the bottom floor. And this is a highly engaged, evolved company where the families, the people that run, it's 100-and-some-year-old business. The people went to the best business schools in the US, came back. And so when they realized that there was a complete disconnect to the companies that the senior leadership thought they were leading, and the experience of the people who had to make things happen were happening, it led me to this need to be able to create a sense of authentic sharing that was safe in a culture, because many of you are tuning in from Asia, in a culture where there is a great deal of hierarchical deference. How do you share what needs to be shared and hear what needs to be heard safely? And we created something that allowed for anonymity in the sharing. It blew the minds of the senior people. It started to open up a crack for the people who were actually doing the work and creating the value. But of course, they didn't trust that if they weren't anonymous, that they would be that they would be heard. And so we created this system on our own. And then 8 months later, I met you, and we've been using your system ever since in a great, authentic way. And your ability to enhance the technology has allowed us to create conversations that defy hierarchical deference. And therefore, when everything is anonymous, the sharing becomes much more safe and authentic. And that is, we've run a number of projects now, I think almost 30. And our school we signed, and I think we just are now paying for a long-term license with you to run hundreds of projects this way. And because when people feel safe in the cloak of anonymity, they can share what needs to be shared, and they can start to collaborate without worrying about who are they collaborating with, which is very freeing for the most senior leadership and quite liberating for the leadership at different other hierarchical levels. And I think that that's a really critical element here. And wherever we go, Dan was talking about authenticity and authentic leadership. And Victoria asked a question about how we create that. And somebody asked the question, what do you do when people don't trust or when people don't feel connected? And usually people don't feel connected when they don't trust that they really have a place, that they are really valued. And so when we can create anonymity and then unmask at the right time, where people have already collaborated in a very free way, what we're seeing is that it's enabling leadership to take risks that they might not take before, even in cultures where hierarchical deference is so embedded. And that's a really critical part of this, because you think about what authentic leadership is made of. And authentic leadership is first made up of very concrete things. It is, of course, made up of love, and affection for the people and value of the people, but it's made up of very concrete things. It's made up of providing the people that work with you with the tools and resources they need. If you're not doing that, then people don't trust that they're valued. And if you can't do that, you need to share why, so that they feel part of that distinction. The other part of building trust, in addition to giving the right tools and the assets that they need, is learning how to delegate so that the senior leadership at every level gets out of the way, shares the mission and gets out of the way. And therefore people know that they're actually trusted to complete the mission. They're actually trusted because it's nice to have a wonderful sense of values, but values come into play when people can create the frameworks for their mission and then have the freedom and the resources to move forward with their mission. And that's especially true in a highly digitized environment where, in spite of the fact that senior leadership may think that they have proprietary information, they almost have none. And so some of this is intentional, some of this is de facto. And so the final part of authentic leadership is, and this has to happen at every level. So most senior people have to share this with their next level. The leaders of the next level have to be authentic about doing this. The next part about authentic leadership is celebrating failure and not punishing failure. And nobody believes when a leader says, you can come in and discuss anything, even if it's been a mistake. People don't trust that. People say, we have an open door, ask anything, share anything. People don't trust that. They only learn to trust it by the actions that are echoed from the senior leadership down through management at every level. If there's consistency there, then there is an opportunity to take advantage of this. Now, in the world of education, we're training people to use a variety of frameworks so that you can solve complex problems. But the biggest framework that we're teaching people is that even amongst the team, there has to be a shared mission, the shared creation of the mission. And if that happens, then failure isn't punished, it's embraced. After all, when you think about how you solve complex problems, usually you quickly define in some way what is the key challenge or the key question. And then you create hypotheses, right? And so all hypotheses are things to be tested. There's no value in a hypothesis, no more value in a hypothesis that's proven or a hypothesis that's disproven. It's the same with success and failure. If there is failure, that should be celebrated. So people learn that they really are trusted, and then more resources provided so that whatever's learned can keep driving that particular mission.
Yes, and at this point, do you mind if I quickly ask Louis as well, because I'm very interested that you were just talking about how to reframe the problem, and people need a creative and safe space in order to reframe the problem. Because if the problem was given by a business leader who sees their organization from the inside, let it be a large organization or a startup, now students come and or even consultants or people from inside the company, and they question what the real problem is. So there are some things that that might be uncomfortable to say or to give as a feedback. And Louis, I wanted to ask your opinion as a participant and also as a practitioner. What's your view in creating a safe space and learning by actually questioning the status quo and coming up with a new reality?
Well, thank you, Priscilla and Dan and Jacob, David, for having me here and everything like that. Just a brief background. I am a second-year MBA student at Cox SMU School of Business here in Dallas, Texas. Professor David Jacobson has taught many of my classes, and I've had the pleasure of working with him on a few of our projects. But really going back to my first experience with design thinking and this new way of challenging and creating those safe spaces. I started on a project that the school had for MBA students last year over the summer, and it was a different experience for me. I have a somewhat of a unique background all over the place. I have experience in the military, which was a very rigid management structure, and then getting back into supply chain. There's certain things that are always rigid is the word. You don't deviate from the norm all the time. So coming into an environment where everyone was comfortable enough to share ideas, where their ideas can be further investigated, and their opinions were valued, it was a surprise, a very pleasurable surprise for me. So part of that experience involved real life companies with real problems. And we were hearing the stories from the CEOs themselves, the leaders of the company. They were presenting these problems to us as students. And again, for me, this was maybe a month or two into my MBA program. I really didn't know anybody, but I felt comfortable enough to engage with them. As Dan said, everybody should be welcome in these challenges. Whenever we come together and collaborate, by encouraging openness and a safe space, creating that safe space, people are more encouraged to share their opinions and experiences. But for me, again, the value that I took away from it really was I met all these new people that I couldn't imagine from all walks of life, and I learned from it. But also my experience was valued. So we were all able to contribute to the final solution, and then part of that real life scenario, we were able to contribute to a real solution. And that kind of empowered us to make the right decisions, to look for the alternatives that would work. And it definitely increased the value of the lesson that was being taught in that immersion.
Thank you so much for sharing. And with that, David, I would like to ask you, when we are about to design more empowering talent programs, either inside large organizations or for MBA students, what makes a learning program really immersive? And what do you think should be the reality if we would like to engage and listen to people, but also we would like to make them feel like they accomplished something at the end, just like Louis said, that there was a value in this process? What should we take into account?
The first thing we take into account is that they're doing something real, even if it's a short sprint, so that it's not just learning a practice, but exploring that practice to a genuine outcome for a real organization. And because then there is something to celebrate and also something to learn from. And we, business schools in general often do what's called experiential learning. And almost all of them have some version of that. Our focus is that our students are constantly engaged with real challenges, and we are looking for very ambiguous ones, even if they have a very short time to solve it. And so that is, to me, the most important part of it, is that there is something that is started and finished that adds genuine value. The other part is having real tools, real frameworks. So if you can't do that, if it's about 5 bright people sitting around and having a top of mind discussion, because it won't be challenged, you won't be able to stress test the assumptions with facts. So the frameworks have to work to allow that. And the other part of that is that the teams have, by definition, have to be quite diverse. And diverse can be on the basis of ethnicity and orientation and age and viewpoint, because the more diverse they are by a point of view, the more that assumptions will be challenged as part of the process. And so I think that those things, giving an environment where there's a lot of diversity and creating a mission, even if it's a sprint, that is based in real life, where everything has to be tested and assumptions have to be challenged, is what is required in order to engage this. And then, of course, Dan said this in a very short way, but using the right technology so that there are things that can be done extremely well in person when the world permits that. There are other projects that are enhanced by doing it in just the environment that we're in. And we've done so much of that together now, and we realized how critical it is to use the right technology and apply it as a precise tool, not, well, now we're going to always use Be-novative, because Be-novative is very agile and flexible. So how we use it in a most specific way, and let the students or the participants define what they need, as opposed to a senior leader or David Jacobson telling them what the tool should be framed like. In the last one we did, which was for a global fintech company, you notice that I stayed out of the way, and the students did a magnificent job, and Lewis helped enable that too. So.
Yes, and with that, we were talking about how important it is to question the status quo and reframe the problem. And by reframing the problem, we would actually tap into a root cause, something that is even bigger, something that might connect us better to the purpose of the company, or a longer term strategy, or something that has been there for a longer time, and we need to solve it first. And the other part of the equation that I see makes a program really immersive and engaging if we are about to deal with talents is dealing with feedback. I see that it's going to change in the future, and we need to somehow show a different path to the participants. And by dealing with feedback, I mean showing and engaging with a conversation about what the problem is, but also what the solution could be. Because we need to take it into account that there is not one single winning solution to any type of problem. And we need to engage many people, from the original challenge owner to people with diverse viewpoints, to all be able to provide feedback. So what's your viewpoint on how to do this right?
There is this concept of radical candor. Kim Scott wrote a great book. Everybody should read it. And this concept of radical candor invites you to say what needs to be said, but also invites you to hear what needs to be heard. It happens in all aspects of an immersive experience. The first place it happens is that very often the owner of the challenge has framed it in a way that is a reflection of their pain, but not the cause. And so a very good team that's working on it will almost in very short order have to come back and give feedback about the nature of the challenge that might be different. And that if you only stop the pain, you haven't solved the challenge at the root. Then there is the notion of how the team gives feedback to each other in the process. It's very often that there's a dominant person in a team. We try very hard to teach skills so that it's often the quiet person that has the most perceptive insight. And so how do we create an environment where quiet is recognized as powerful, and often that words are recognized as a need for quiet, and that radical candor is also very important. There is to have the freedom and also the intestinal fortitude to say what needs to be said. The other part of this is that when you're working in a group, we try and disaggregate the concept of ownership of an idea, because almost as soon as it's articulated, it takes on an iteration. So it now belongs to one or two people, and then three people, and then four people. The concept of using the Be-novative platform, where we're creating collaboration that's anonymous and very quick, permits that very instinctively. No one owns the idea. Very often in companies, especially large companies, but not just large companies, people are afraid to share an idea because they're worried that it's not perfect, so someone will criticize it, or they're worried that it's very good, someone will steal it and get the credit for it. And in the models that we're talking about, we give up ownership immediately, and then the idea becomes more powerful. And that is another place of radical candor. The third place of radical candor is those who are judging. The first one you did for us, the judges were all leading founders of early stage finance companies from Singapore, Hong Kong, Luxembourg, London, New York, San Francisco. And they were instructed to be ruthlessly direct about the feedback they were giving to the teams. Because if you just say, "Oh, that was great, thank you very much," then you've lost the entire opportunity to learn. If you have a trustful situation, then direct feedback is welcome, not feared. That's the other part. When we were talking about celebrating failure, that doesn't mean that, Yahoo, let's have an ice cream party because we failed. That's the time where direct reflection and direct feedback is really critical. And that has to happen inside these teams. So the teams have to be in a place where they are excited to get extraordinarily direct feedback. And so you see every stage of this, feedback is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more. And I'm curious about how, Louis, you see this point on feedback.
It's definitely, feedback throughout the entire process is important. Even when you're first starting out all the way till the very end, that's how you come up to your decisions, and stimulates your critical problem solving skills, So it's important to be in touch with everyone involved in the process, including the team members, students, and otherwise.
What was maybe your favorite way of receiving feedback? Was there anything memorable, either from the jury, team members, from the original challenge owner?
For us, we formed teams pretty quick, our teams pretty quickly in the immersion project. And communication was a constant. Like David mentioned, the timeline was very tight. And of course, we wanted to do our best work. So the initiative was there to always reach out, to always share ideas. If we came up with an idea in the middle of someone else, maybe pitching their idea, we would hold it for the end, and then we'd enthusiastically participate. So there was always some form of communication throughout. And then when it came to the outside, We were working, like I said, with real leaders and real companies with real problems. So it was, with the advent of technology and everything in the world now, we were able to reach out to the CEO of the company that we were working with, and we were able to ask those questions, and we stayed in contact almost the entire time. We used various tools. Microsoft Teams was our primary, I guess you can say, meeting point. And we were able to connect with the business leader, the CEOs, to the point where information was being shared, and that way we can develop our solution that much more detailed and complete. Like I said, we had a lot of buy-in. We understood the gravity of the situation, how much our ideas and opinions could actually impact this company. So we took it very seriously, but we were always encouraging each other to just reach out and stay in contact.
Thanks so much for sharing. And actually, it's a perfect transition to opening up the questions from the audience, because the first question we got is on what is your favorite reframe tool or method? I guess it's for reframing the problem. And Luis, it goes to you.
Well, for me, especially in my current job, I tend to take functional suggestions, things that then affect the business immediately. That's how we build. That's how we innovate and discover new things. So, as you previously mentioned, I took a small course from IBM on design thinking, and they go into a loop method of solving problems and challenges. But I know one of them is I call it the why. Basically, you just take that problem and you say, okay, what's the problem? I need to solve X. Well, why? And you keep asking why until you find that root problem. And that's what you take action on. That's what you start the ideation process, the creative thinking. You come up with your solutions, and eventually you come up with, the end result. For me, I do a somewhat of a condensed form of that. Like I said, especially in my job, where things change all the time, I'll bring my team together and I'll present the problem and I open it up. A little less anonymous, but we all know each other. We all work with each other every day. So the interactions are genuine, and the opinions come from people that are engaged and that are trying to improve our situation. So as far as reframing, that's my go-to method right there, is to just keep asking why until I find the root cause.
Yes, thanks for sharing. And let's see another question for David. Why are institution fees higher in the post-pandemic world than before? Can education be disrupted in terms of costs, methods, or in any other ways? What's your take on that, David?
Well, I think that it is being disruptive in the fact that there has never been so many choices out there. But the choices mean that it's a menu. And so you can get a $12,000 MBA, or you can get a $175,000 MBA, and associated with those are different experiences that you would get. So there is disruption, and there's some very cool people doing things that are quite important. There's also education is shifting in that some large companies are saying, we'll train people to give us what we need. And if they come with us, that degree is free. And so, finding those opportunities are very, very interesting. My son's in one now. He's getting a degree from a school in the East, and he's also taking this contemporaneously. So I think that there is just a tremendous menu out there. And if you access the menu, you'll see that there's all different approaches. But one big answer to why it's expensive for traditional schools is that people think, well, going online makes everything cheaper. It actually makes everything much more expensive. If you do it well, it costs much more to develop a very good online program than an on-the-ground program.
Thanks so much. And I'm also interested, if we are about to talk about disruption of the educational system, that actually the exact term challenge-based learning was introduced by Apple in 2008 because they created a new type of classroom where they brought in a real life problem, and they empowered the students to first also reframe the problem and then come up with new solutions and then validate and test them with new hypotheses. So what's your take on this general concept of challenge-based learning and learning by experimenting? Is there any way that it would give new value to people developing new types of skills? Do you think that it will disrupt the way people learn in the future?
Well, I think there's two parts. People learn much more impactfully by doing as opposed to reading about it. And so if you look back at Apple and the way that that was adapted in all sorts of iterations across other companies and across other schools. And so we know that if we want to teach something that's highly complex, even if it's very analytical with lots of math, that we have stopped giving problem sets. And we're teaching data analytics and we're describing scenarios. And people have to figure out what tool they've learned that might apply to it. Different groups might come up with different tools. And it is agonizing for students who are used to just getting a math set. Now do this, because everything about that is uncomfortable. You figure out what you need and apply. But when people do that, just like they had to do that in the Apple world, they'll never forget that process that they created to succeed in that. And then therefore they have a tool that they can bring to work the next day, the very next day.
Yes, I really love it. And with that, I'm 100% sure that then Riley also has some comments on that. So I would like to introduce you back and invite you back to the screen to share a couple of thoughts with us on everything that we just talked about with regards to feedback, with regards to reframing a problem or listening, empathy. Then I hope that you can hear us. Hey, hey.
Hey, yes, sorry, I'm here.
So anything on providing feedback and listening to people in new ways? Anything about how to reframe a problem or question the status quo? Should we allow it to people or not? Do you think we would have new ways to do that? So anything you would like to reflect on that we talked about?
Yeah, and how we listen. Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think, and having I think asking questions, having an open mind, not necessarily going in with an answer in mind, that's the most important part of any valuable conversation and building empathy and learning from each other. I think going in as best you can with an open mind. Sorry, my phone was ringing. With an open mind is a much healthier way to enter into a conversation. So that would be one recommendation. And I think a willingness to change behavior too. I mean, that's a key thing. We all have opportunities to grow and change. And I think that's the most important thing. Even if you're a leader, understanding where your strengths are and where they're not, and finding people around you who can complement that. So I think it's a humility too, and having conversations and learning and sharing and building empathy and humility and saying, I need help, or I don't know. So that would be my quick response to that question.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really love that we were talking with David as well about how important it is to give a truthful feedback, but also this element of how important it is to point out the strengths and to compliment and also to celebrate the real successes and to recognize people for who they are and what they have brought to the table. Yes,
I'd add one more thing, and timely, right? Feedback, it's so important to make feedback as timely and relevant as possible and specific, right? When you're giving someone feedback, it's one thing, well, you're great. It's like, well, no, say, but what you did, when you did this and you said this, and that was great, because then that starts to change behavior, because now there's a specific linkage to something that was celebrated, right? And when there's opportunity to change or grow, be specific as well. And I think that's so important and timely. This idea that we give feedback every 6 months or at the end of the year before merit increase or, is, again, a bit absurd, right? We have to give feedback timely throughout the year, and that's so important.
Thanks so much for sharing. I just thought that we were referring to the conversation so much that you relay the scene so far that I wanted to ask if you want to also reflect on something. So I really, really like this loop at the end. And thank you so much, Dan, David, and Louis, for all your amazing contributions to the topic. And we have created actually a problem and opportunity map, just like an outcome, as we would like to share with all the participants that this was the outcome of what we heard today. So Henrik was supporting me to create this problem and opportunity map. Would you like to share your screen maybe, Henrik, and show what it looks like, just to have a glimpse on that before we say a warm
Definitely.
welcome. Thank you. So here are our takeaways of the Future Trends event, and we had been gathering all the different point of views and outcomes, from what is the right timing to the background to what resources we can use to empower people, who should be the audience, what strategy to involve and how to align with the strategy, and what positive impact to take. So this is just our favorite technique, not just for note-taking, but also this is an extra that we like for reframing a problem. Thank you so much, Henrik, for sharing. We will be able to share all the outcomes with you soon. And as last words, I would like to give the floor back to you. Very, very grateful for the great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And as a last question, if people want to connect with you, how can they best connect with you after this event? Dan?
Sorry, I hit mute again. Yeah, LinkedIn is great. I put my LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. So please, connect. Shoot me any questions, and again, thank you, Pris, for this floor. And I really loved everyone's conversation today. It was just inspiring, and I love leaving these events feeling inspired. So mission accomplished.
Thank you so much, Dan. David, what is the best way if somebody would like to connect with you after the event?
I'm happy to, and I respond to LinkedIn communication. I just brought my LinkedIn link to the top of the chat. Feel free to explore with us ideas, and maybe we can work together in some fashion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Louis, what's the best way to connect with you?
For me, LinkedIn is the best. I have it on my phone. I check it every day. I'm a lifelong student, so collaboration and learning I'm open to new ideas and sharing what I know. I think contributing is the best key to enhancing everyone's learning experience. So LinkedIn, and I'll post it in chat.
Thank you so much for all of you. Actually, for me too, this is a consensus. I'm really active on LinkedIn. And if any one of you would like to shoot me a question or continue the conversation, I'm very open-minded, and we can have even a virtual coffee to see what's your point on any of the issues we have been talking about. So thank you very much again for all of you, David, Louis, and Dan, and looking forward to the next time we can host such an event. Thank you so much for everyone joining us and for the great questions. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pris.